Hello, and welcome to the Nickels and Dimes Finding Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and I look forward to bringing you amazing content each week that will provide you with a financial education. It will support you in your financial journey, and most of all, help you to find financial freedom. I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to Nickels and Dimes Finding Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and today I am joined by my good friend, Shane Styne. Today, we're going to discuss all things tax related for business owners, and well, we'll get into it as we get going. But Shane is the CEO of Notch CPAs, where they are focused on supporting and helping business owners and individuals with their tax needs, ERC and SETC filing, and additional tools that can help business owners to reduce their tax exposure. In his prior life, Shane was an executive for the largest REIT in the U.S., and Shane and his wife, Tracy, have 6 children and are building a beautiful life focused all around family, and they actively participate in all that their kids do. So Shane, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Oh, Natalie, the pleasure's mine. Anytime I can come and be a part of something as massive as what you're doing, it's a privilege.
I appreciate that. All right, well, I'm going to throw a surprise question at you.
Sure.
Just as a little icebreaker. So, if you could be any superhero in the world, who would you be and why?
Well, I guess, I'd probably have to say Superman because I grew up watching him as a kid, right? I mean, obviously, I watched all the superhero movies, but Superman was somebody, in my opinion, that looked like an average everyday person, but possessed true superpowers that no one really even knew they existed until he decided to show them, but he employed them every day of his life. And I believe honestly and truly that we all possess those same superpowers. It's just whether we believe it or not, right? We gotta be a kid a little bit. We gotta have some imagination a little bit. But the reality is, once we empower ourselves and believe that we can do more than we ever thought, we're unstoppable.
Yeah. And I love that answer. I think it fits really well for you. We've known each other for a few years now. And one thing I've always seen in you as a person outside of business is that you're always looking for ways to help people, especially the little guy. And I think that was the biggest superpower that Superman had, is that his focus was on helping the little people and protecting them. So I think that's a perfect fit. I appreciate you playing along with that question. I never give that as a heads up because I kind of like that surprise answer. And ironically, they always do really fit with the people I'm talking to. So it was perfect. Let's get started today by talking a little bit about your background and what led you to Top Notch CPA firm and the work that you guys do.
Yeah, it's a good question because I believe that things happen to us in our lives for a reason. And I'll be the first to tell you that I was one of those ones that like, why me? Right. I was never really, in my opinion, I was never really blessed growing up. We were poor. We were broke. I had hand-me-down stuff. And it was just my mom. And she was working her butt off 16, 17 hours a day to try to put a roof over my head and put clothes on my back. And at the time, I didn't learn to appreciate that.
Yeah.
But one thing that I did learn was how to work hard, right? And my father left when I was probably about 3 months old. So he was never a part of my life growing up either. So I had my grandfather, right? Now we're talking about different levels and generations here.
Right.
And my grandfather and my mother could only teach me one thing: how to get a job, right? And they would always say, set up a 401k and then work your butt off the rest of your life and try to move up if you can and then retire. And that was the journey that I started on, right? Was getting jobs at a young age. Heck, in high school, I worked 3 jobs. Back then you could get out at like 10 a.m., go to work. So, I would work 3 part-time jobs growing up. And I think that hard work ethic that I learned young is what really got us to where we are today, as well as starting to recognize that everything that I was experiencing and living through, and I'll be perfectly honest, it took me it took me 38 years to figure this out. Okay, so I was about 38 when I reunited with my wife Tracy, and it started to sink in because she made me a believer again. But I just had a hard time, and I didn't really believe that I was destined to do great things or destined to be anyone but, the average everyday Joe working hard, living a decent life, right? I
Yeah.
always made good money working, but it was never money that was going to set us up and build a legacy for our children, which, became the scenario growing up as well, is that we realized really quickly that our parents, they were telling us one thing, but they weren't actually preparing for retirement either.
Yes.
So it was putting us in a position where we were going to have to take care of them. Um, so all that's being said to kind of give you some backstory of my personal life, but in my career paths, I've always been really, really good in making other people's companies very successful and wealthy, right? Because I was smart, I was quick, I could watch you do something and then I could regurgitate or repeat what you were doing. It didn't take long. And I've always been somebody that's heavy on research and I can look things up, figure things out very quickly. I've just been gifted in that area. So I excelled and moved up with every company that I ever worked for. And then I got to an executive level with the REIT that you spoke about.
Hmm.
And it was a wonderful company, right? They treated me very well. They took very good care of me. And I was making what most people would say is more money than you could know what to do with, right? I mean, it's crazy to think that a couple hundred grand a year or a little more is enough money to make you give up on your dreams, quite honestly. And I'll say this: when I started looking for the signs and realizing them, working for that company, and then meeting people like yourself and Jason and Ed, which is the best friend of 30 plus years, and some other people, John and Tony and everybody, um, that's where the shift really started to happen in about 2020. That I started realizing that what I was told my whole life about getting a job, getting a 401k, and trying to retire, as you know, in 2020, the pandemic happened, right?
Right. Right.
And my retirement account, which was my 401k, took a $70,000 hit in 3 days. So that wasn't something that they prepared me for. Told me to get ready for, right? So here I am working my butt off and saving money, and then I get hit and I get set back 3 or 4 years in 3 days.
Yeah.
And I came across, right, the life insurance, the financial planning industry in 2020 at the same time. Listen, it's ironic, right? Or is it evidence? It's evidence that there's something more there for us. Are we willing to see it or not? So I learned about the financial industry, planning, planning for the future. And then I've always been a big giver. Like I've always wanted to help other people because, to be quite honest, my entire life I was focused on me. I was focused on, making as much money as I could, having all of the things that we ever wanted, which are all material things that temporarily fill that void that I think I was experiencing when my dad left, right? Because there was a gap there.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I started to meet you and other people in the industry that were amazing people that actually started to help lift me up personally and started to fill that void that I was looking for and searching for my entire life. And then obviously, my wife Tracy is big in faith, and she's supporting me and pushing me up. And she actually challenged me to take a chance, right? To
Yeah.
burn the bridge, to cut the rope on the anchor, to jump off the boat, right? Burn the boat down to where you're at a point that it's either sink or swim. So uh, I dove headfirst into the financial arena, and I studied for a couple of days. It wasn't really complicated. I studied for a few days. I got licensed, and then I ran into another roadblock, getting my license from the state. that was a journey. It took a few months. And to be quite honest, I was almost at a point like I was ready to give up. And then my wife was like, "What are you talking about? You're not a quitter, right?" And I was like, "I know I'm not a quitter, but Jesus, like it's not worth it to me." Well, little did I know that that first call with Ed and Jason and that roadblock into getting my license, when all of that happened, everything went through, I finally got approved and I got licensed. And then um, we started financially planning for our family first. We started utilizing the tools and getting the life insurance and getting the financial products and starting to refocus our journey financially and spiritually, to the point that I started making new relationships every day. I started meeting new people every day. It opened me to a whole new world because now I was forced to go out and start talking to people, right? I was
Mhm.
forced to go out and just talk to more people and share with more people the excitement that I had about what this license brought to our lives. And then, as it always does, it opens the door to other opportunities,
Right.
right? Like each part of our life is a stepping stone into the next opportunity, the next adventure. And we're scared to death about what that looks like because it's change, and change isn't easy. But I was working for the REIT and I had my financial license, and we were very successful at it at a very rapid pace.
Yeah.
And I just realized, you know what? We were making a lot more money now, right? Because it's the highest paid industry there is. But I just realized that the money really wasn't what was fulfilling me at this point. And it was strange because I've never experienced this in my life. But I was doing Zoom calls every day, every week for months. And what I realized was the people I was getting on Zoom with, those people had a message for me, not the other way around. Sure, they were excited. It was new. It was something they'd been thinking about, but they were all giving me more than I was giving them on those Zooms. And that told me right there that I was on the right path and the right journey, to the point that I just started, I don't know how to explain it, but I just started kind of manifesting things, and I just kind of started dreaming and seeing what the future had to hold. And then they started coming true, to the point that literally there was an event going on, and it was a last minute thing. If any of you know Jason, it's always last minute, right?
Yeah.
There was an event going on in Atlanta with a great friend of ours, Jeff Levitan, and he was doing kind of a soft launch, so a small group, right? And Jason's like, "Hey, I need you to be in Atlanta in 3 days." And I was like, "What? Hold on a second, right?" It's like a Friday, and he wants me to be there on a Monday, and I'm like, "Hold on, dude, it can't just up, up and shift my life." But little did I know, I was like, "Hold on, let me check my schedule." Okay. And with the REIT, one of my jobs was I traveled to all 17 states, and I did training and motivational speaking to all the teams in all 17 states. So I had to plan my year out at least 3 to 4 months in advance. And I pulled my calendar up, and lo and behold, 3 months prior to him giving me 3 days, I already paid for, I already booked my plane tickets, and I was staying at the hotel across the street from the event.
That's amazing.
It's mind numbing when you actually think about it.
Yeah.
Was it possible? Well, it's not a coincidence. It's just evidence, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and in that event is where I saw an opportunity in the employee retention tax credit space, right?
Yeah.
Uh, there were obviously several opportunities there, but I saw an opportunity because there was another company out there, right? A CPA firm that was a pretty large CPA firm, and their focus was helping big companies,
Yeah.
right? And I said, well, hold on a second. Like, number one, I started researching what I was learning in the moment, on the spot. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think about it. I didn't have to guess if it was real or not. I started Googling and researching in the middle of the event, and I started realizing very quickly, holy moly, this is real. But then I'm a statistics guy, so I'm a numbers person.
Yeah.
I realized very quickly that their threshold way up here of 10 employees or more literally eliminated 70% of the small business owners in the United States.
Wow.
Literally 70% of the small business owners in the United States right now, granted, there's 37 million of them, right?
Right.
But 70% of them have 9 employees or less. So I said, well, hold on a second, right? What do we have to do? Like, what does this look like? And Natalie, quite literally, within a couple of days, I gathered and put together a group of tax professionals, CPAs, accountants with decades of experience, and we formulated the ERC specialists right there, right? Which later turns into top notch CPAs. But everything's top notch branded now.
Yeah.
But still, the ERC specialist, we just DBA as top notch. And I can't explain to you how overwhelmingly successful that we were by helping the little guys, right? Now,
Yeah.
we helped a lot of big companies too, but it was like just an overnight explosion. And I'm forever grateful and thankful for all of our referral partners, our business partners, all of you guys that have worked with us directly. There would be no us. I can have an idea, I can put people in place, but there's no action and no motion. There's no client, right? Without a relationship.
Yeah.
Could we go cold call? Sure, but nobody wants to answer a cold call. People want to work with people they trust and they know. So that's where you guys come into the picture, and together we've been able to build something massively successful.
Yeah, absolutely you have. And I mean it's been amazing to watch. There's a couple things that you said in what you just shared that I want to circle back on before we get kind of into the meat of some of the work you guys actually do. So, the first one is you talked about how you grew up super poor, dirt poor. And what I heard in your story right now is that you actually grew up in the epitome of wealth because our society focuses wealth on dollars. And I think as we grow and mature, and I know this for you and conversations we've had in the past, that we learn and realize that real wealth comes from the lessons that you learn and what your mom and your grandpa taught you about hard work. Like you said, it's evidence, right? They put you on the path that you continued to follow. And maybe it was at 38 that you finally figured it out, but somehow you stayed close enough to that path that when the opportunity came, and we always say, you have to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime in the lifetime of the opportunity. And that's where you have to have your eyes open to step into those things that come your way, not just for yourself. More than that, it's for everybody you can help through that opportunity. And you've done a really good job of that. The other thing you touched on was creating the community and the people that we surround ourselves with. I always told my son, I've been a single mom for 17 years. And when my son was coming up through middle school and high school, I always said, choose your friends wisely. And that's something my parents always said to me. And now we look at that in our world and we always say, the 5 people you surround yourself with is what you're going to become. That's who you're like. So if they're good people with a strong a strong mentality, a positive work ethic, wanting to make a difference in the world, then you're going to become like that. And if they're not, then you're not, right? It could be a
Yeah.
million other things. Um, but just being in that place, and then the third thing you said was being in that place, you recognized that nobody was helping the little guy.
Mhm.
And that is one of the biggest things that pulled me into financial services. After a 20 years successful, six-figure income, loved the company I was working for, loved the people I worked with. I did well. But what I realized when I came across the financial opportunity is I could help the little people who didn't have the education because I had a college degree in accounting, finance, and business, and I didn't know that information. So I knew if I didn't know it, the everyday person out there definitely didn't know it. And so to hear that connection of, you know, you get into the financial services, and the way that our company works is we're helping. Yes, we help the affluent people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We help whoever needs help, but it's built and focused on the people who don't necessarily have $100 an hour to pay somebody for help or a $500,000 to invest, right? And so to hear you say that that was really the same thing that stood out to you in seeing the opportunity that led you to creating what you did, I think is a huge point because, as much as we give really direct education here, I hope that people hear those little things in the conversation so they can maybe recognize those opportunities in their lives because there's a million of them around. And there are ones that are made for each and every one of us. It's just a matter if we're in the place to receive it when it gets here, right? So I love that. And I appreciate that vulnerability in your story and sharing where you came from, because I think that matters too. But if we jump into now, well, before I get right to some of the actual things you do with clients, I want to ask this one question. When it comes to business owners, maybe they're small business owners, right? And so when you start out, there's a lot of stuff you do on your own, or you may have a bookkeeper, but now you're getting to the level your business has grown, you have more employees, there's more financial responsibilities on your company, definitely more tax responsibilities, liabilities. For somebody that's looking for that CPA firm, that expert in that area to help with their business, what advice do you have for them when they're stepping into that? I need somebody that's an expert in this area. What do they need to look for?
It's a very general question, but
It
let me
is.
see, broad 30,000 foot and maybe a little lower is this. We have to fight and grind every day to be successful at whatever venture we're going after. And we have to be humble and willing to know what we don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And if you look at every very successful business owner in the world today, they're surrounded by a team of people who know what they don't know.
Yes.
And they don't have one CPA, one accountant, one bookkeeper, one tax strategist, one lawyer, one financial professional. They have a team of them. And the reason for that is we all are very different people, and we're different because of the way we were born and raised.
Yeah.
And then we were different because of the experiences we had in life. And I'll tell you what, there are very few people in this world today that can separate their personal opinion and, um, emotional involvement in the experiences they had that makes their judgment sometimes biased, right?
Hmm.
And it generally pours right over into whatever profession we have. So um, I would just say this: find out as quickly as possible what you are very, very good at and surround yourself with the people that are very, very good at things that you're not that great at. Because here's the reality: if you're a dreamer or a doer or a builder, if you make things happen, obviously you're an entrepreneur, you're able to do those things.
Yeah.
You need all the time and energy you can focus on growing, expanding, improving everyday processes and procedures. And you have to be able to take risk. And I'll tell you what, you'll never take a risk if you're drowning in the day to day nuances of business ownership, right?
That's
So,
true.
yeah. So when you're looking for a team, I hate to say it, but you need to be willing to ask the hard questions. If you're talking to a financial advisor or professional, ask them how much money they have where they're telling you to put their money, right?
Yep.
If I'm telling someone as a licensed financial professional, hey, we can do 3 or 4 different buckets for you and plan for your future, I better be putting money in all 3 or 4 different buckets personally, or how can I instruct someone else to do the same thing?
Amen.
And yeah, listen, it's not easy, right? It's
Right.
uncomfortable. But I'll tell you what, why would you give someone all of your money if they're not putting their own skin in the game? If they're not putting their money where they're telling you to put your money, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
That's one piece of the puzzle. And then the other piece is this: when you're going to think about strategies, taxes, deductions, what kind of laws and rules are out there for your advantage, you need to have a team of individuals. And that's why I built the company the way I did. I know that a tax strategist is someone, right, that is typically an enrolled agent.
Right.
And an enrolled agent goes to school, studies, and learns very specifically tax laws and tax codes and how to implement them.
Yeah.
Okay. A CPA, an accountant, and a bookkeeper, all three do the exact same thing. They put the right beans in the right bucket.
Yep.
They make sure that your money is input correctly, that your general ledger is accurate, that your bills are reconciled, your expenses are all categorized. Their job is to make sure that everything is recorded correctly. They do not go to school for tax law and tax code.
Right.
That's why when I get the question all the time, Shane, why doesn't my CPA tell me this? And I'm like, well, you're asking for them to do something that they don't specialize in. That's why.
Yeah.
Right. So it's always good to have each one of those types of people in your life: financial professionals, business strategists, tax strategists, accountants, bookkeepers, or CPAs, enrolled agents, um, and then accountability partners. So I just challenge everybody that's looking at entrepreneurship to ask the hard question before just taking someone's opinion or advice based on their experience, and running with it, because it can lead you down the wrong path very quickly. And then 4, 5, 10 years goes by, and you finally wake up, and guess what? You just wasted 4, 5, 10 years.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that, ask the hard questions, because I mean, I was sitting here thinking, come on, Shane, say it. If not, I'm going to say it. But that is such an important point. I think so many times in in any realm, we step into a place where, okay, I'm going to get my car fit worked on, right? I'm not the expert. Now, my daddy did teach me some things. He's like, I don't want anybody to be able to take advantage of you. These are the things you can do yourself, and these are the things you need to pay somebody for. But you go in there and you're not the mechanic, you're not the expert. So, my advice on top of asking the hard questions is don't work with somebody that pushes back when you ask them. And what do I mean by that? If they push back to shut you down, like they don't want to explain, I mean, look, you're not going to sit there for days on end and try and understand every tiny thing that they do so that you then become the expert. But if they can't answer the hard questions to put you at ease about turning over your finances, turning over your taxes, turning over your car, repairs on your house, like that should be a sign. And it's okay to say, I'm gonna go to the next one. Like, you should interview any experts that you're bringing on who are going to have a hand anywhere
Yeah.
in your financial pocket, your investment pocket, your the things that you own, your family. Like, anybody that you're bringing in as an expert to help and support you in an area needs to be willing to answer questions so you can feel comfortable working with them. You can build a relationship and you can say, I like, know, and trust this person. And so I appreciate that you went there. Um, so that being said, let's get into a little more of the meat of it, right? So you stepped in at first to create the opportunity for the little guy, the really small business owners, to be able to capture that ERC money and SETC money when that came around as well for self-employed people. So let's start with, what is ERC and SETC, and then how are you helping business owners and self-employed people to identify whether they qualify and then also to recover it?
Yeah. Listen, it's a great question, because there's so much misinformation out there with people that have never even done an ERC filing or an SETC filing, and they don't care to do it. So they will tell you you can't do it just because they don't understand it, versus saying I don't know how to do it. And that's the hardest thing to do, is tell somebody that depends on you and your expertise in this profession, right? Because if you're in the CPA world, not necessarily accountants or bookkeepers, but in the CPA world, EA world, you should be versed on what employee retention tax credit is. You should be 100%. Because if you're not doing your job for your clients.
Yeah.
You should be reaching out, telling your clients, listen, I know the program is real. Not tell them it's a scam and it's fake, because you could be liable at this point for telling them and providing them as a professional, as a fiduciary that's licensed. You're giving them misinformation that could cost them hundreds of thousands or tens of millions. And I have had too many business owners that we've recovered 2, 3, 5, $8 million for come back and threaten to sue their CPA because they almost missed out on the program.
Yeah.
Their CPA literally told them, you don't qualify, you can't do it, it's a scam, don't do it. And then they get back $3-4 million and then they fire them. And I hate to see that happen, but we have a responsibility, and our responsibility is to be fair and unbiased and tell people, clients, what is available, and they make their own decisions. So when it comes to the employee retention tax credit program, it's really simple. People have heard it a million times already.
Yeah.
In 2020, the CARES Act came out. And remember, that was the pandemic time, right? COVID was happening. People were losing their businesses left and right. People were losing their jobs left and right. You couldn't walk out of your house in some cities and states, right? Much less you couldn't open your doors as a business owner, which means your employees couldn't work and you couldn't get paid. So there was a lot of things that happened. So in 2020 and 2021 is when you are supposed to take advantage of the program.
Mm-hmm.
And what it was for business owners who have full-time W-2 employees. Okay. No owner, no family member. They don't count as employees. They have to be legitimate, non-owner, non-family, full-time W-2 employees. Okay. You'll hear 10 or more. The reality is you can qualify with one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We can't help employers with one employee because there's not enough money in recovery, in fees, in the cost of it. It doesn't make sense. But they could file on their own. Any company or business owner out there could figure out how to file on their own, and they deserve the money. So I would recommend every business owner that can qualify or meet the criteria I'm going to talk about, go and apply for it. If they'd like to work with us, awesome. We're very good at it. We've been doing this for quite a while now. We've helped thousands of business owners, hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's growing every day. So I would just advise a couple of things. Number one, let's back up a little bit, is this. If your business was open in 2020, 2021, okay, and you experienced impact during the pandemic, then you can now, because it's May the 8th, 2024, the only filing period open is for 2021 now, okay? So if you would have applied in 2021, you would have paid in less taxes on your payroll. Just a high level, you would have kept more of your money. That's what the program was designed for, is for you to be able to make payroll, keep a big chunk of the taxes that are associated with payroll, right? Because most people think, oh, business owners just make all the money. Well, business owners pay payroll and then they pay payroll again to the government, right? So there's double payroll when it comes to taxation, and you would have kept the money. Well, nobody was talking about it. Nobody was doing it. So now you paid in the money, and the government is saying, if you were impacted during 2021 because of the pandemic, we will give you a large chunk of that money back. I say large, it's actually a very small chunk. Okay. But you can potentially qualify for up to $21,000 per full-time W-2 employee for 2021 alone. That's 7,000 per employee per quarter for the first 3 quarters of 2021. So Q1, Q2, and Q3 of 2021, you can potentially qualify for up to $21,000. Okay. So here's the confusion. Shane, my CPA, my bookkeeper, my accountant said we don't qualify because we made too much money.
Right.
Remember what I said in the beginning. Do not just take what someone tells you as the law, right? As biblical reproduction of whatever's going on. Ask the question. Can you show me where it says that on the irs.gov website? Not on your website, not on Google, not on someone's public opinion piece. Can you show me where it says I had to lose money to get ERC credit back on the irs.gov guideline for ERC? And the reality is they cannot show them that because it does not say that.
Right.
What it says is if you were impacted due to a governmental order, okay, by an appropriate governmental authority. So the president, the vice president, the mayors, the governors, the city staff, the health department in your local area, the health department was shutting businesses down.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, they were walking around telling people to get out of the store. You can't be in here. You're over 50% capacity.
Right.
And here's your fine or your judgment to shut your doors today.
Right.
Those are appropriate governmental entities and authorities that can tell you to do those things. But if you remember, the president of the United States was saying shelter in place.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say if you're in Texas, you can go free. And if you're in California, you shelter in place. They said shelter in place. They put United States worldwide bans
Mm-hmm.
on travel, on your ability to go to work, your ability to open your business. They weren't allowing you to be in public without a mask on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if any governmental orders that were appropriate, which all of the above is appropriate, caused you to have a full or partial suspension of trade or business, right? Which means you couldn't go to your job normally and work normally, basically. If you had to close your doors from certain time of day to a certain time of day, if you're a restaurant and you couldn't do dine in, you only had to do carry out. If your place of business is like a church, right? Because churches qualify. How many churches weren't allowed to have services?
Yeah.
They were doing them in parking lots, right?
Yep.
If you couldn't act and do business as normal during 2021 now, if you couldn't travel because of COVID and COVID restrictions, if you go to business trade shows, vendor expos, if you travel to see your manufacturers, and that's how you get your business ready for that year or the next year, those are all legitimate impacts to your business, right?
Right.
Um, if your company requires vehicles, your people drive company vehicles. If you couldn't buy company vehicles to put your people in to go service your clients, that's a qualifying impacting factor. And you can document that very easily, right? If you're a lawn service company or construction company and you couldn't buy raw goods and materials to go finish jobs, now your jobs are taking 18 months to complete when they would normally take 6 months. You can document those financial impacts. You can document and request emails or communication from your suppliers and vendors saying, hey, we couldn't get materials, we couldn't manufacture them. That's the other thing. If your supplier was shut down during the pandemic because of COVID, you can qualify. You didn't have to be shut down. If they were shut down because of COVID, you can qualify because guess what? You can't do your job without your equipment and materials, right?
Right.
So, so those are all qualifying impacting factors. And the IRS does not require you to send any of that information. What they require is, did it happen?
Mm-hmm.
And you document it and put a memorandum together and keep it in your files for the next 5 years, right? We tell all the clients, listen, you just have to tell us the impacts and different things that happened to you, but you're going to have to document it because only you can. Only you can get the emails, the correspondence, the information, put a memorandum together, keep it in your files. If they ever come back, and listen, people like to use the word audit,
Yeah.
and people are trembling right now when I say the word audit because either they've been audited or they've heard horror stories about people being audited in their business.
Yep.
Well, guess what? That is a Friday the 13th Jason Voorhees scare tactic because an ERC audit is not a company audit. They're not opening your books. They're not looking for your receipts and the deductions you took and the credits you took and where you spent money, how you. None of that occurs in an ERC audit. What they do is it's by quarter. So let's say, for example, Q1, Q2, Q3 of 21, we apply. And they want you to show them what happened in Q1. They have some questions. Well, you're going to supply your documents showing the impact that you had in Q1 of 21, and you're done. That's it. That's an audit. Literally, you show them the documentation you have, they review, they might ask a few questions like, how did not having company vehicles impact your business? Well, Natalie, think about that for a second. It's really simple. Every company keeps analytics and data and statistics.
Right.
We service 100 businesses a month. And out of those 100 businesses a month, each vehicle services 25 of them. Well, we had 200 business contracts and we could only service 100 of them because we couldn't get 4 vehicles. So it's really simple to say an extra 100 contracts would equal this much money that we missed out on because we could not service them because we could not provide and buy the equipment needed to service them. Right.
Right.
But listen, that sounds like a lot of work. Well, guess what? It is work, and you're gonna have to do some work to get some money. And they're not just gonna hand it to you, right?
Yeah.
So that is the roadblock that accountants, CPAs, bookkeepers are gonna run into because they don't want to do that. Like
Mhm.
they want to file your taxes and be done in 3 months and vacation the other 8 months, 9 months out of the year. That's just a reality, right? So that that's the gist of ERC. I don't know if you want to ask any questions about ERC before I go into SETC.
So I just want to recap a couple things. So, number one, when somebody tells you don't qualify, don't just accept the answer. Ask why and ask them to show you where they're getting that answer from.
On
Um,
the IRS.gov website.
on the irs.gov
Yeah,
website. Yes,
not Google, because I can go put a Google article together right now telling you ERC is the greatest thing on the planet and you qualify no matter what,
that's
and you
true.
can Google it and find it. But that's my opinion piece. That's not
Right.
a fact. Only information, the only source we should be getting information from is the irs.gov website. And I guarantee you, they will show you exactly what I just said, dang near verbatim. Because the number one way to qualify for ERC is if you experience those impacting factors,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you lost money during the pandemic, none of the impacting factors matter because if you lost money, it's an automatic qualification. You don't have to put any supporting documents together other than a P&L statement showing you lost money. That's easy. Think about how
Yeah.
easy that is.
Yeah. It's
A lot
something
of
you already
people,
have. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people did lose money and they should all apply for ERC, but that's not the number one way to qualify. the number one way to qualify is the impacting factors. And if none of those impacting factors happened, then you have to go and show and look for a gross receipts decline, which just means you lost money.
Yeah.
That's the second and last out to qualify for ERC is if you lost money. Nowhere does it say that you had to lose money. We have had, as a matter of fact, we've had clients that made millions of dollars more in the pandemic than they did in 2019 because that's what we're comparing to. And they still qualify because even though they made more money, they raised their prices.
Mm-hmm.
They worked longer hours on job sites than expected. So they brought in more hourly wages, right? They
Yeah.
raised the material prices. So it's a misconception that they made a lot more money because they did a lot more work, right? There are a lot of factors of why people made more money, but they could still qualify if they had any of those other impacting factors that caused their jobs to be impacted.
Okay. So perfect. Why don't I qualify, and show me where on irs.gov it tells me that? Number
Mm-hmm.
two, the overall explanation I got from listening to you, I'm going to say layman's terms. Here's what I interpreted in the easiest version I can think of. Every year, I pay taxes on my income. And at the end of the year, I submit a tax return that shows all the expenses or things that qualify me to get a portion of that money back. Basically, that's exactly what this is doing. You paid all this money in, and now you're going back and saying, here are the qualifying factors according to irs.gov that say I should get a portion of that money back.
Yep. They're
Okay.
giving 70% of it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
it's
they're still keeping
it's
that 30%, right?
yeah. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course they are. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I think it's called something else. People say we don't qualify it for it. Oh, I didn't have 10 employees. And so it's becoming this big thing. What it comes down to is you paid in, and here are things that say, just like in your personal taxes, you can claim this happened, and this happened. And therefore, you're going to get this back.
Yep.
That's simple. Now, based on the dates you were giving, 2020 is gone, right? We can no longer recover ERC for 2020. But what is still open that people should be looking into is 2021, Q1, Q2, and Q3, correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to highlight those couple of things. So, yeah, let's jump into SETC.
Yep. So SETC is the Self Employment Tax Credit Program. And that program is the exact same time frame as ERC, right? 2020, 2021. If you were self-employed, if you were a gig worker, real estate, financial services, life insurance, contractor, single member LLC, right? Corporations won't qualify. But if you received 1099 income, then you can potentially qualify for the self employment tax credit program. And it's basically this: in 2020, 2021, when the pandemic was going on, and you're a self employed individual, well, you couldn't go get work or you couldn't go do your business as normal. And here's the biggest distinguishing factor here is ERC is a credit for the owner. Okay, so the owner gets that money back. What they do with it is their choice, but they paid payroll. So they're just recouping some of their expenses. With SETC, you as the individual paid in taxes, and you as the individual can now get the credit. So basically, it's putting some of what you paid in again back in your pocket because SETC, if you didn't pay taxes in 2019, 2020, 2021, just to keep it really simple, if you didn't pay taxes and show a profit in those years, then you're not going to get a credit back.
Right.
They're not just going to give you a credit back when you didn't pay money in. So, to make it as simple as I can, if you look at your tax forms and, man, it's going to be really difficult to still get 2020's credit because it ends on the 17th. It
Yeah.
ends in 9 days, basically, right? If you look at your tax forms for 2019 and 2020, and if you filed a Schedule SE Sam Edward, which is a self employment tax form, that means you showed a profit in your Schedule C and you could potentially qualify. So you're looking for a Schedule SE for 2019, 2020, and 2021. And then you could potentially qualify if you have a positive Schedule SE. Here's what I'll say: it needs to show at least 9,500 or more for it to make sense to use us to do this. Because, one thing that I didn't reiterate earlier, and I want to make sure that everyone understands this. We're a CPA firm. We're not a contingency company. We're not someone that's not registered with the IRS. We're not a company that doesn't have P10 numbers, CAF numbers. You can look those things up. Okay. They'll tell you what they mean. That means that we are authorized to act on people's behalf with the IRS. And when we do a filing, we put our CAF number, our P10 number, our information on every filing, versus a lot of companies will charge you fees, fill the forms out for you, send them back to you. You file them on your own, and you're stating that you're a professional, tax professional, a CPA, a bookkeeper, an accountant, and you understand everything you're doing. So the risk is 100% on you at this point.
Yeah.
Whereas we provide long term audit support and assistance with everything that we're filing, because if we don't do these correctly, the IRS will revoke our ability to be able to help people with tax prep and filing for specialty credits. So that was a long drawn out story, right? But self-employment tax credit program, Schedule SE, you're looking for line 6 to be about 9,500 or more. And here's the qualifying criteria for it, okay? Number one, it's a good faith filing. So there's no documentation required. If you had COVID, if you felt like you had COVID, if you were uncertain, if you had to go get tested, if you had to quarantine because you were told to or because you chose to, any of those things happened during 2020 and 2021, you can claim up to 10 days per year for 2020, 2021. Now, I know that might seem a little confusing because I'm asking about 2019 as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I can use your 2019 income to qualify you for 2020 if the income is higher than 2020, right? So
Mm.
we ask for all 3 years to make sure we don't miss something. A lot of these companies out here are telling people that they can only use 2020 and 2021, and that's absolutely not true. It's a 1 year look back. So if 2019 was really good because that was pre-pandemic and 2020 was really bad, then we can use 2019's income to get you more money.
Yeah.
If 2020 was really good and 2021 was really bad, we can use 2020's income to get you the money for 2021.
Okay.
So what's the sweet year here? 2020 is the sweet year. We want 2020 to be the highest income year because we can use that single income to apply for 2020 and 2021. But kind of get back to the days here, because the only way you're going to get credit is you had to make money and then you have to claim days impacted. So basically, it's the number of days you claim. There's a division that happens, and then we multiply it by the number of days you claim. So the income divided by 260 days in a year times the number of days you claim. All right. So we can get 10 days per year personal. And then we can get 50 days in 2020 and 60 days additional in 2021 if we had children and their school was closed or their daycare was closed. Like Tracy and I had the same sweet lady. She had a little daycare out of her house, but she was registered and she was licensed. Her daycare facilities were shut down because the state told her she could not keep kids in the house.
Right.
So guess what? those days qualify, because if your kid can't go to daycare and they can't go to school, how does that impact you as a self-employed individual? It impacts your ability to earn. So you can claim up to 50 days in 2020, up to 60 days in 2021. And then you can also claim some of those additional days if you cared for any other individual. It doesn't have to be a family member. If you provided care for any other individual that it had COVID symptoms, you can also claim the extra days. And the max credit right now is $15,110 for 2020, $17,110 for 2021. So you could potentially totally get back $32,220. But we only have a few days left for 2020. I'll be honest, if we don't have all tax documents, all questions answered, and payment by the 13th, 14th of this month, we're probably going to miss out on 2020, because we have to amend all of the client's personal tax filings for 2020 and 2021. It's an amendment. So we amend their personal tax filings to claim the credit, and we tell them, hey, you're going to get back $20,000. Well, guess what the IRS is going to do? They're going to review the paperwork, and they're going to cut them two checks, one for 2020 and one for 2021, and they're going to get back $20,000. The only way you won't get the money back is if you're on a payment plan and you owe the IRS money, or you have some type of tax lien or tax debt that you owe. They'll keep the money that you got. So if you paid us to file for you, like I just literally had a gentleman yesterday said, Shane, I owe $40,000. He made a ton of money. He's going to get back almost the whole 32,000. He said, it's worth it to me to almost wipe out my entire tax debt and pay you guys to get me back almost $32,000. So
Right.
it's worth it, right? For him, it's worth it because he pays $1,700
Yeah.
one time flat payment, and he's getting back 30 something grand that's going to wipe out almost his entire tax debt. So he saves, $28,000.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you for going into the details of those, because I think it's important that people understand that everything they're hearing and all the confusion around it is keeping people from getting what's actually due to them. And it's a lot simpler than we're being made to believe it is. So we have a few minutes here left here. So what I want to wind down the conversation with is um, the additional things you're doing in partnering with business owners to reduce their tax liability, um, and benefit, create some protection for themselves, their families, and their businesses going forward. So I'm just going to kind of let you go with that, how you want to go with that, because as we know, I'm not the expert in that area. That's why I have you. So
Yeah, listen, it's my pleasure. During ERC and SETC, we're looking at everyone's tax records and documents, and I'm seeing that people are being overcharged, underserved, left and right. I mean, literally, people are paying $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 to file for their LLC. They're paying 3 times more than they should, right? So again, true to form, I said, you know what? We can do tax prep and tax filing for all clients. We understand the tax strategies and what's available to us, because remember what I said in the beginning, it's about the team. So I
yeah.
have a team of super lawyers, not regular attorneys, super lawyers, a ton of awesome paralegals, enrolled agents, which is the highest level you can be with the IRS, CPAs, bookkeepers, accountants, and then tax professionals, with everyone having over 10 years experience. So there's no stone unturned when we're working with an individual or business owner, right? I can just give you a few examples of the last few days. We had some people making over 500K a year. They were W-2, right? But their wives had like a side business and they didn't know that they could take deductions.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie, these people withheld no taxes. They claimed exempt on their checks, made over 500K. We were able to take and structure all the wife's business ventures, take deductions and strategies that are based on tax law, tax code, and get those people back $20,000, right? So, tax prep services, we can do it for you.
Yeah.
Tax strategizing, which means planning throughout the year, not trying to come at the end of the year and make things up or try to backtrack things because you can't do that, right?
Right.
I
Right.
know we all try to do it, but planning throughout the year, making sure you're taking deductions correctly, making sure I can't begin to tell you how many scary things we saw in these filings of just made up information and numbers. You
Yeah.
got to get this stuff done correctly, right? And our price structure for doing this work is $250 to $1,600. No one's competing with us on the price structure because we can do it with as many clients as we have. We don't have to hit a home run on every client. But you said something very important. I can almost guarantee if you're a business owner, right? You have a brick and mortar location like a storefront, or you're leasing a little booth or a space. If
Mm-hmm.
you're a business owner, I can almost guarantee you 15 to $75,000 in deductions that you're not taking today. Literally, I can guarantee at least 10,000. No problem. That's easy. Because remember, accountants, CPAs, and bookkeepers don't study tax law and tax code. They just tell you to go buy things, right? Like
Yeah.
cars and equipment. Who the heck is going to go spend $100,000 on vehicles and equipment as a tax write off when they could pay themselves that money and
Mm-hmm.
access it tax free, right?
Yeah.
So, this is something very powerful that you and I partner together, and many other business owners in the financial services industry. This is the thing. People are going to tell you, the people you trust are going to tell you that you cannot take deductions and access cash tax free. You can't do it. Well, I'm telling you 100% you can. The tax code is 101J, right? Now, there's a whole lot that goes into it. You're not going to go Google 101J and understand how it works. I'm just going to be clear,
Yeah.
but
For sure.
we specialize in it. Here's what I can tell you the conversation is every single time. Your CPA, your bookkeeper, whoever it is that's telling you you can't do it, ask them if they hold a financial advisor license. Do they have a Series 6, 63? Are they licensed? Are they a registered investment advisor? Because we have all of the above on our team. And of course, they're going to tell you you can't do something they're not licensed to do. So I'll leave you with this piece of it is one of the most powerful strategies we have is business owners, right? There's some nuances that are going to have to be met here, but the majority, large majority, if you're paying in taxes every year consistently 10, 15, 20, I've got some business owners paying in 300 grand a year. They're killing it, right? But I ask them the same question every time. Listen, if you could pay yourself that 10, 15, 20, 100, 200 grand a year instead of paying it to Uncle Sam, and you could take a business deduction dollar for dollar and then access the cash tax free within 30 days, would you like to hear about it? And obviously they're like, what? What do you mean take the Uncle Sam money and give it to myself? Right? There's a very big difference between trying to get people to spend money versus giving them money back that
Mm.
they didn't have in the first place. We are giving our clients money back. We're not telling them to spend money. We're not telling them to come up with additional money. We're showing them how to use a tax law and a tax code that gives them the ability to change the payment from Uncle Sam to themselves. And then they can access the money tax free within 30 days and do whatever they want with it. What could you do as a business owner keeping all the money you've paid to the government for the last 10, 15 years or 20 or 30 years going forward? How much bigger would your business be? How much would you be, mentally, you would be free, right?
Yeah.
Physically, you would feel alive because every business owner stresses about tax season every year. And if we could take that stress out, it will change your entrepreneurial vision and journey forever.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you touching on that. And look, that is a conversation that is very specific to the business and the business owner, what your goals are, what your situation are, what your numbers are. And so that is why Shane left it where he did. What I can tell you is based on this conversation today, if you're a business owner or you're self-employed and have not looked into ERC or SETC or have been told you don't qualify, take the time to sit down with somebody that's an expert. If you want to connect with Shane, you can contact me through the show notes and I can connect you to his team and they will help you identify if you qualify for that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are a business owner looking for opportunities to reduce your tax exposure, please reach out. Shane's firm is built on purpose to be able to handle every level of the things he's talked about, to be able to answer all your questions, and to be able to show you why or why not utilizing what the IRS puts out. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that makes Top Notch different than your everyday CPA. And I am not bashing everyday CPAs. They are important and they serve a purpose, but they also don't serve certain purposes. And Shane's built a firm that can cover all of that to make sure that his clients are truly taken care of in every aspect. So, Shane, I appreciate you being here today. I appreciate you going into this information. I think it's so important for people to understand because when it comes to taxes, everybody freaks out. Everybody does. Let's be real. And so to be able to get some really straightforward information, I think is super valuable. So thank you again for being here. I appreciate it. Again, if you guys need to connect with Shane, reach out to me. I have literally a direct link to him. And if he doesn't reply to my text, I'm just going to text his wife. So I'm just saying. But I appreciate you, brother. Thank you guys, everybody, for joining me today and listening to the Nickels and Dimes podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and I look forward to continuing to bring you amazing content each week that will educate you, support you, and help you to find financial freedom. So until next week, take care and stay safe.